Of course, an absolutely crucial part of working memory is the central executive. We avoided tackling it because we knew it was going to be complicated. And indeed, when I wrote my first book on working memory, I almost finished it and then realized I'd not done anything on the central executive, and in embarrassment decided to look at the literature on attention. On the whole, that was a little disappointing because most of the literature was concerned with attention and its influence on perception, whereas working memory is much more concerned with attention and control. However, there was one theory that had been produced by Donald Norman and Tim Challis that at base was very simple. They both had rather different requirements of the theory. Don Norman was interested in slips of action, mistakes, things like the Chernobyl or aircraft crashes, or everyday slips of action, and wanted to have a model of attention that would deal with this. Tim Challis was very interested in the frontal lobes and in patients who had frontal deficits, and these are typically associated with attentional problems. They tend to perseverate, go on doing the same thing again and again and again, or have difficulty in focusing attention. They can be distracted very easily. I mean, to give an example of both of these, one patient I studied with a very substantial frontal lobe deficit. This had resulted from a driving accident, and he was a very genial character, and very easy to test and to talk to. And I asked him what did he remember about the accident, and he almost certainly remembered nothing because he was unconscious for days afterwards, but he happily confabulated and said, yes, well, I was driving along to the Steel Company of Wales, which is true, and I went to overtake a lorry, which was probably true, and there's a lorry coming the other way. So I hit it. So we stopped. And so he got out and I got out, and I said, I'm sorry, mate, it was my fault. No, he said, it was my fault. No, I said, it was certainly my fault. No, it was, and he got into this loop going round and round and round until eventually he broke away. But another characteristic of frontal lobes is the distractibility. So one interesting and bizarre feature of this is what's sometimes called utilization behavior, which is that if something is in your sight, then you will respond to it and use it. So if the tester has a cup of tea, then you will lean over and drink it. And I think one of the more bizarre examples was a doctor who was interviewing one of these patients and happened to have a hypodermic syringe on his desk, whereupon the patient got up and started to inject him. So it's as if the world is driving you and you're just going along with it. So how to explain these? Well, basically, Norman and Challis proposed a system that was controlled in two ways. One was relatively automatically habits that are well acquired that need the surroundings to run them off. So if, for example, you're driving to work, you know the route, you're used to driving in traffic, you'll sometimes get there and think, I can't remember. What happened between leaving and arriving here? Was I unconscious? Well, almost certainly not. But presumably what happened was that everything was pretty automatic, allowing you to think about something else. Now, if there'd been a traffic jam and you'd had to find a way around, then you'd need another system. And this other system they called the Supervisory Attentional System, the SAS. And it's the SAS's job to step in when the routine system fails or needs help or needs external planning. And so I adopted the SAS as my central executive. What's the basic things that my central executive would need to do? Well, it would need to focus attention, to switch attention, to divide attention, and to link with long-term memory. So my view is that it is a large job that lots of people are involved in to pull apart the different executive processes that are necessary in order to run the working memory system. And I've done some things towards that, but others have done large amounts more. But one of the problems that cropped up while I was attempting to do this was just how powerful this executive should be. Should it be able to remember as well as control? If it's both an attentional system and a storage system, maybe it can do anything, and it's going to be hard to test it. So for a while we tried to get away with assuming that it was purely an attentional control system. When we did that, we ran into a number of problems. More particularly two. One was how the different components, the visuospatial and the verbal, communicated with each other. Because if you have two systems that are interfacing and they're coming in at different rates, you've got to have a buffer that would allow them to store and integrate with each other. And secondly, how is this all linked to long-term memory?